There are moments in life when you're pushed just a little too far, and you realize that the only way out isn't to turn the other cheek or back down, it's to push back. Hard. And boy, did I push back. Let me tell you how one woman, with a misplaced sense of authority, managed to mess with the wrong person and how I turned the tables on her in a way she'll never forget. It started on a Saturday morning like any other. I pulled up to my driveway, coffee in hand, thinking nothing of it. I hit the button for the garage door, and nothing. Red light. Blinking. Dead. I tried again. Still nothing. What the hell? I walked around the back of the garage, and that's when I saw a thick industrial-grade padlock on the latch, just hanging there. Now, I'm not one to panic. I've seen my fair share of strange things in life, but this was a new level of insanity. Some idiot had locked me out of my own garage, and not just locked it up, but parked their SUV right in front of it. And by SUV, I mean Saw Sufkran's SUV. You know the type. The one with the bright lemon yellow paint that screams, "I'm in charge, whether you like it or not." I froze for a second. That garage wasn't just a place to store junk or tools. Inside, sitting like a king on a throne, was my grandfather's 1971 Mustang car I'd spent years restoring after his passing. That car was more than a project. It was a legacy. And now, some woman with a badge, a clipboard, and an inflated ego thought she could just take it all from me? My stomach twisted as I stood there, trying to comprehend what I was looking at. The lock. The SUV. Karen's arrogance. I pulled out my phone, thinking this was some kind of sick joke. A text from an unknown number appeared. Saw, garage access suspended. Poor HOA decision. Contact President Karen for appeal. Saw that's when it hit me. His wasn't just some random act of maliciousness. This was planned. This was war. Now, here's the thing about Karen. She wasn't just some neighborhood busybody. No, she was the newly elected SAW president of the Homeowners Association SAW, and she ruled this place with an iron fist. Her rules were her SAW rules, and they didn't care whether or not they made sense. A few weeks before, the HOA had already sent me a fine because I had repainted my garage trim. A fine for something that, in my eyes, was just a touch-up on a structure that had been built long before the HOA even existed. But Karen? She didn't care about that. She didn't care about legal documents or common sense. She cared about control, and I was her next target. At first, I tried to ignore her. She sent me letter after letter, fine after fine, all of them filled with threats and snide remarks. It was almost laughable. I had county permits, a legal garage, yet Karen decided to ignore all of that. She was and said that my garage wasn't just my SAW property. It was now part of her HOA's shared space. I had enough. I marched over to Karen's house to give her a piece of my mind. She didn't even have the decency to open the door herself. Her son, no older than 12, answered with a juice pouch in one hand and a Nerf gun in the other. Without blinking, he said, "Mom says, talk to the HOA email." And just like that, he slammed the door in my face. This was it. I wasn't going to take this lying down. I went to the HOA office, found Karen behind her desk like some kind of queen, sipping her tea, with a sign behind her reading, "All HOA decisions are final." I walked in, laid out every legal document I had, and pointed out every single violation she had committed. She didn't even flinch. She looked at me, her eyes as cold as her tone, and said, "Well, those papers are old. The bylaws changed last quarter. Besides, you're not even listed as a contributing member. The community voted that your garage would be better used for collective storage." Her words were like nails on a chalkboard. She wasn't just disrespecting my property. She was trying to erase my family's history, my grandfather's legacy. I tried to remain calm. I really did. But as I turned to leave, I looked at my garage, locked up tight, and something inside me snapped. That's when I remembered. My Ring camera. I had installed it years ago, but had almost forgotten it was there. I pulled it up on my phone, scrolled through the motion alerts, and there it was 4 nights earlier, at 2:46 a.m. Karen, in her robe, sneaking up to my garage with a flashlight and a padlock. She slipped the lock onto the latch, took a selfie in front of it like it was some twisted trophy, then drove off. But she didn't know something. She had left her key on a lanyard. That was it. I had her. I texted the footage to my lawyer and then started to plan. It wasn't just about getting my garage back anymore. No, this was about something much bigger. It was about making sure Karen would never forget who she was messing with. I wasn't just a homeowner. I was an aerospace engineer, and I had friends who could do things most people would never even dream of. I called up Brian, one of my old buddies from work. He specialized in precision airlifting, the kind of guy who could move a mobile office onto a rooftop. So I asked him, how hard would it be to airlift a garage? There was silence on the other end. Then a slow chuckle. You serious? I told him everything. And he laughed again. I can make that happen. Send me the coordinates. I wasn't about to destroy my garage or Karen's SUV, but I was going to make her see just how far she'd pushed me. The plan was simple. I'd get Karen's SUV back in front of my garage, and then I'd make her regret every single decision she'd ever made. I threw a neighborhood potluck, told everyone about a community garage showcase. Karen ate it up. She showed up early, strutting her stuff, and of course she parked her precious SUV right where I needed it. Once she was in the clear, my crew went to work. Cables were attached to the garage, and everything was set up in secret. She had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. My heart was racing. The helicopter was scheduled to arrive in 48 hours. The moment of truth. I stood outside, watching as the chopper came into VYEW, its blades cutting through the air. It wasn't a drill, Anna Marie, it was happening. I hit the go button on my tablet, and within seconds, the garage, with Karen's SUV inside, began to rise. The crowd that had gathered gasped. People pulled out their phones. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. And then, Karen stormed out of her house in her bathrobe, her eyes wide with disbelief. What is happening? Who authorized this? Put it down right now, she screamed. But there was no stopping it. The garage was lifting higher and higher. Karen ran into the street, screaming for someone to stop the helicopter, but nobody was listening. I stood there calmly, watching as she lost it. Don't worry, your car is safe, I said. I'm just relocating it temporarily. Her face turned redder than her lipstick. But there was nothing she could do. The helicopter crew didn't even acknowledge her. As the garage reached its peak, hovering over the neighborhood, I smiled. This was justice. But Karen wasn't done. She filed a lawsuit, claiming emotional damages, theft, and public defamation. She wanted me to put her garage back. But what she didn't know was that I had a lawyer. Claire Ho was ready for her. Claire didn't need a stack of papers. She just needed the truth. And when the case went to court, the judge couldn't ignore the footage of Karen herself locking up my garage. The case was over before it even started. Karen lost her power. She was kicked out of the HOA, her authority crumbled, and the neighborhood started to heal. People began levying their lives without fear of fines for every little thing. But for me, I didn't just win. I saw one saw. And every time I opened that garage door after the ordeal, I knew it wasn't just about tools or cars anymore. It was about standing up against injustice, no matter how big or small. And you know what? Sometimes, you've got to fight fire with fire. Or in this case, with a helicopter. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my shoes? Drop a comment below and let me know. And don't forget to share this with anyone who's had their own HOA nightmare. You might just change the way they see the system.